Okay, here we are. We make so many videos, eventually we were going to have to get here eventually, and as I'm sure you know, some news came out of All Elite Wrestling the other day, because CM Punk walked into a press conference. He was super duper honest, he told us what was on his mind, and afterwards the Elite went to talk to him, I suppose, backstage, and then they got into a big old fight. Nuts. It is a super serious situation, and as I've said a few times, and I will say for the 79th time, we do have to remember this is human beings with feelings, and they're probably going through it right now. Although when we do put it into a little ball, AEW are probably never going to be the same again. Why? Here's why. Okay, right. Does anybody feel like we should sit down for this one? I feel like we should sit down for this one. Let's sit down. Right, there we go. Makes me feel a little bit better. And also like I'm some kind of end-of-level boss. So let's be honest with ourselves to begin with. Something like this was already going to happen. I'm not saying that it's good. I'm not saying that it was bad. I suppose there's elements of both, more on the bad side. But when a company does start growing in any kind of business, you do get to a point where basically egos take over, and if you can't control them, it goes boom. I mean, it happens in wrestling, it happens in banking, it probably happens down the grocery store. Because Mary hates Darren, but Darren likes Joe, but Joe doesn't like Steve, and Steve cannot stand Margaret, who's over here, and all of a sudden they're looking at each other, and the boss sees it, and the boss doesn't know what to do, and all of a sudden they're throwing bananas at each other. It's a tale as old as time. The truth is, we don't know who was right and who was wrong, and yes, of course, Punk doing what he did do in that media scrum probably wasn't the best idea in the world, but it can't have come as too big of a surprise, because over the last few weeks we have been told that when Hangman Adam Page did his promo against CM Punk, he said some things that maybe he shouldn't have said, and then of course Punk came out on that Dynamite and he called the cowboy out, even though that wasn't part of the script, so Page wasn't able to walk down to the ring. I think Punk called it a receipt. And right now we do have a better picture about what the punishment here is. We know that Kenny Omega has been suspended, we know the Young Bucks have been suspended, Christopher Daniels, Pat Buck, Brandon Cutler, and a bunch of other people. Although as of me talking, we don't know what the deal with CM Punk and Ace Steel is, although the rumor mill suggests that they will be suspended as well. But if you listened to Brian Alvarez recently on Wrestling Observer Live, he said he thought the situation was so volatile and so bad that him personally can't ever see this lot working in the same company again. And look what this has done to my face. It's like I've got a bad smell. And the reason it affects AEW going forward is twofold. The first of which is that this can never happen again, at least in a public setting. I do not buy into this idea that Tony Khan is a massive pushover either. Have you seen how many businesses he's running and how many egos are going to be involved in that? Of course he knows what he's doing, and of course he knows how to handle himself. This was just a pressure cooker that spilled over and the water burnt his hand. I mean, let's put ourselves in his shoes, because I'm not 100% sure I know what I would have done if I was sat there at this desk and my biggest star started ranting and raving about everybody else in the company. And I can also see it from both sides, because if you are Punk and you think people have been leaking stuff to the press that isn't true, you're going to want to make that right. But if you are Nick or Mac Jackson or Kenny Omega, and you're sat there going, well, we didn't do anything, why is he mad at us? You're also going to want to restore balance to the force. I mean, you would be fuming, because nobody wants to have their name dragged through the mud if they didn't do anything in the first place. It's like when people call me a bald a-hole. Do you think I chose to have this? Of course not. I yell at my dad every day. And there's no way you're ever going to stop wrestlers from falling out because they are just individuals at the end of the day. But do you remember what happened in the Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday after the All Out pay-per-view? Nobody was talking about the All Out pay-per-view. Nobody was talking about the amazing matches that we had on it. And nobody was talking about the fact that MJF had just returned to the promotion. And you can't allow that to be the way that your promotion exists, because otherwise, why do anything on television? It's actually a waste of time. And sure, that may actually help pop a Dynamite rating. And of course, on that show, Tony Khan was able to say, well, I vacated the world title and I vacated the trios title. But this is the law of diminishing returns. The main reason wrestling fans tune into their wrestling product is because they want a story that's going to go week to week to week, not for absolutely crazy drama. Like, it works here and there, but if you do it all the time, eventually you're just going to have people face palming going, man, I can't deal with it anymore. Like a divorce. I mean, it goes to show that the days of all friends wrestling are over, and man, we really should hope that that comes back. But moving on to point number 2, as we kind of saw on Wednesday, even without CM Punk and Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, who I do totally agree are some of the best talents in the world, we had 2 hours of sports entertainment, and it was fine. I would go as far to say it was absolutely brilliant. So you do have to keep that in your noggin, as well as the fact that Khan had to do something here, because if somebody does just say whatever in the hell they want to and they get off scot-free, why wouldn't everybody else the roster go, well, he didn't get punished, so neither will I. And straight away you'll be yelling, yes, but CM Punk is a top guy, and that is true, but it's only going to take you so far. For example, let's make up a wrestler. Leaping Larry, the sports entertainer. Leaping Larry is a good old guy, has a smile on his face, but he ain't nothing more than a job guy. You still don't want him going, well, AEW is terrible because I saw Evil Uno graffitiing somebody's car, because it just adds up to more negative press. And I get it, there's levels here, and spray painting someone's vehicle is not as bad as what we did get, but if it happens over and over and over again, much like the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up, becomes a bit of a distraction. It's also now risking us stopping getting dream matches that we've wanted for ages, one of which was CM Punk versus Kenny Omega. And doubly what I wanted was CM Punk teaming with FTR to take on the Elite, maybe for the Trios Championships, maybe for the Tag Team Championships, and maybe for the World Championship, because you could have done that match for one set of belts, and then Hangman and Punk could have spun off and they go after the World Belt, whereas FTR and FTR and the Young Bucks are fighting after the Tag Team titles, and you could have made that last for 6 months, and it could have been some of the best damn storytelling we ever get. Now, if they can get on the same page, it will be even better. But as I sit here in my calm chair right now, I can't see it happening. So you are going to have to switch things up and dress some people down, and it certainly sounds like having the likes of Tony Schiavone and Chris Jericho in the locker room is helping no end. Although the eyebrow-raising thing about that is you brought in Schiavone because he knows how to handle a situation like this, because he saw the chaos in WCW. And look, there's a lot you can take from World Championship Wrestling, which is good, but that backstage environment, you gotta flush that down the toilet. And as we have brought up Jericho too, I think it's important to note how essential he is going to be, because he just comes across like such a professional and such a calming influence. And who the hell is not going to listen to Chris Jericho? If you go through his career, he has actually and literally done it all. And let's not pretend this is exclusive to AEW either. I can't stand that rhetoric online. I mean, you can go back to the 90s where we had the ultimate one of these brawls, which was Shawn Michaels and Bret the Hitman Hart. I mean, at one point, Bret pulled a clump of Michaels' hair out, which left the Heartbreak Kid to go to Vince McMahon and say, screw you, I'm going home, or to WCW. Now, he didn't do that, but those words did come out of his mouth. And if you really want your eyes to fall out your head, go and listen to what happened backstage between Arn Anderson and Sid Justice, and Goldberg and Chris Jericho, there's another one. And if you then want some levity, read what Eddie Guerrero did, where he thought Kurt Angle had shot on him in the ring during a match, or at least felt he had been too stiff. They got backstage, and Guerrero decided, I'm mad at you, Olympic gold medalist, and I'm going to try and take you down with a double leg. Obviously, Kurt absolutely whipped his ass, and when Eddie had calmed down, JBL said to him, why the hell did you think you can do that? To which Guerrero responded, because I'm a dumbass. This is why Eddie Guerrero is the greatest person ever. And of course, people are going to pick sides. That's just the nature of the beast. But all that matters is that somebody bites the bullet here in order so it doesn't happen again. And it does feel like we've already done that. Again, we know a bunch of people have been suspended. And if you watch that Dynamite and the opening video, there was no Punk, there was no Omega, there was no Young Bucks. We are going full in. I mean, ultimately, we need to take this explosiveness and make sure that it does happen in a squared circle. Because I still cannot believe that MJF came back done in a wonderful way and got that kind of reaction, and it lasted about 20 minutes and then burned down to the ground. And this can be a massive positive and a learning curve for AEW, because essentially, if somebody does have something they need to get off their chest, there needs to be a system in place so they can talk about this behind the curtain. And while murmurings will always get out, it's completely different when they're whispers as opposed to somebody shouting in front of everyone, I'm not happy. I mean, this is a far cry from other criticisms that AEW usually gets, like there's too much blood, and there is definitely something to that. But I would rather have the fountain of the red stuff running into my face than ever have to go through this again. And if you're wondering if that's a weird thing to say, the answer is yes. Also, can you imagine too if CM Punk does end it here? It means he came back in 2021 to one of the best returns I've ever seen in my life, had a bunch of good matches, won the AEW World title, dropped it kinda due to injury, won it back, then burned everything to the ground, and we never saw him again. That is too comic book to me, so it cannot happen. As always with these situations, there's also people saying that so-and-so is going to walk, and don't even think for a second that Triple H and WWE wouldn't snap them up. It's like when Bret Hart left in 1997. It still blows my mind that WCW waited a few weeks and didn't just put him on TV as soon as they can. I mean, he left in the ultimate controversy, but because of that, his star power, somewhat ironically, was bigger than ever. I mean, if the Young Bucks were free agents, Paul Levesque would give them a bunch of cash and a super kick party and probably say, you can do whatever the hell you want. Can you imagine the ratings that a Raw or SmackDown would get if you knew Matt and Nick Jax were on the thing after they'd left AEW in crazy circumstances? I mean, it's so nuts, I don't think I'd be able to handle it. So this was always going to be on the cards for AEW because you can't have calmness all the time. So as long as we do learn from it as we're moving forward and we ensure it don't happen again, then that's actually an amazing learning curve and the cost you have to pay. It does also mean that the honeymoon is definitely over, but let's not forget they are still putting on terrific wrestling matches and terrific wrestling cards all the time. And sure, Rampage needs a little bit of a spruce, but Tony Khan has come out and said he's about to do some sprucing. So long as we see evidence on that, all is actually okay, aside from this little bit over here. Just always remember that with great power comes great responsibility. That doesn't tie into this video at all. I just wanted to end it kind of sillily because the rest of the video has been so damn serious. But for all you doom and gloom folk out there, no, this is not the end of W. This is not how AEW dies. It's just a little bump in the road. If Tony Khan does handle it with aplomb and professionalism and integrity, I actually think it's going to help way down the line. Still though, wrestling, eh? What a wild ride it can be, especially because in terms of numbers, this situation had more intrigue and more interest than Vince McMahon leaving WWE. Let's not forget, in 2022, not only has that happened, but we had Stone Cold Steve Austin back in a match, and ain't nobody talking about that anymore. And Cody Rhodes jumped. He clearly saw the writing on the wall. I don't know if I can take this anymore. Somebody bring me my pillow. Now, please do leave a comment below and let me know what you think about all of this. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Then head over to whatculture.com where we will keep you up to date every step of the way. Make sure you come follow us on social media at WhatCultureWWE and Simon316. We do have a lot of videos. A lot of them feature my bald head. My name is Simon for What Culture. Thank you very much for joining me as always. You make sure you have a lovely little day. If you do have a problem with a co-worker, maybe try and speak with them first. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Don't know what I'm doing with my neck. Goodbye.